Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you from us here at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined as ever by our Birmingham City correspondent, Alex Dicken, who is not long returned from Exeter. Alex, I'll throw you a half volley here. How many hours ago was it that you got back from Exeter? Do a bit of mental maths for us.
Under 8. If we're recording it just after 10 o'clock this morning, I got back around 2:15. So a long one, and I'm not sure I should actually be working now. So yeah, I'm doing the company a service by turning up.
This isn't work. You're just chatting to me. We do this by choice. Was it the one thing I need to know, Alex? Was the M5 closed on the way back at kilometre?
Yeah, a couple of junctions we had to get off and get back on. It wasn't too bad, but there was a lot of little roundabouts in between housing estates, so it slowed us down a little bit, but we were back in quite decent time, really. The roads were very quiet. It was much better than my last experience of the M5 back in the summer when I was coming back from holiday, so not too bad. So
the lesson is go on holiday to Devon in December.
Yeah. Yes, right. That is the lesson.
I'm sure everyone's thrilled to hear about our travel situations. Should we get into the game? Obviously, Blues beat Exeter 2-1. Slightly hard work. Maybe not as convincing as the League One victory had been a couple of weeks earlier. Alex, was it an ugly win, would you say? Is about the right way to sum it up?
Yeah, not dissimilar to Barnsley, was it really? In that Blues weren't at their free-flowing, fluid best, but they managed to get the result in the end in moments of quality, really. I suppose the goal itself, the winning goal, was a really good move in that, Blues worked the ball wide really well to Yokoyama. He had his big moment in that he came inside and got a very good telling cross into the box, and Keshi Anderson produced a really good finish to seal it. So that was the moment of quality in the entire game, really, because you look at the first two goals, they're both... I think you probably both put them down to errors, can't you? I mean, the Blues goal was a playing out from the back error from Exeter, and the Exeter goal was a corner direct, which had never really happened. So the winning goal was the moment of real quality. There weren't a lot of moments of quality in the second half. I would actually say Exeter probably edged it in terms of territory and chances, the better chances at least. But at this stage of the season, in that competition, because we know Blues do want to win it and go far, it's a really good result. Like the result of Barnsley was good, and the added bonus is that Blues made a lot of changes and didn't have to use Christoph Klara, they didn't have to use Tomoki Iwata or Jay Stansfield. So all in all, it was a pretty good night's work.
Yeah, very much a case of getting the job done, wasn't it, and getting into the hat for the next round. Ben Purrington, the Exeter defender, described it thus. He said, "Blues are a good side and they've punished us in the end and got the result they wanted. We limited them to little, but good teams punish you when you switch off just for a second." That about sum it up?
I think so, yeah. If you look at the winning goal, probably the only time they didn't defend their box that well, and Keshi Anderson's drifted into the middle of the goal, onto the penalty spot, found space, and it's a brilliant first-time finish. You can't take that away from it. It's a very decent cross from Yokoyama, but that is the one time Exeter did switch off and Blues punished them. And the key is Blues have got so many players that can punish teams at this level in the attacking areas, and Chris Davis pointed that out after the game. He wants his attacking players with their quality to make a difference in the final third, and a lot of them are, particularly Keshi Anderson. I think we are going to come on to. He's being really decisive in games and getting the numbers, the goals and assists that attacking players crave.
Yeah, we will indeed come on to Keshi. 5 goals and 6 assists in 22 appearances. What did you make of his performance last night? Because I will admit there were times where I thought he's been a little bit wasteful there. Not least the chance in the first half that was absolutely gifted to them. So what did you make of his performance over in that game and also so far this season?
Yeah, I think you're right on the chance, the early chance. It was pretty wasteful. He just didn't seem to get it out of his feet quickly enough, did he? And ended up blazing it high and wide. So that was a poor miss.
Arguably didn't need a second touch. Maybe just go first time potentially.
Well, yeah, because
but then the ball might have been spinning. What I couldn't see from on the TV, and you probably couldn't see from your vantage point, was the ball could well have been spinning, so he might have needed a touch. Incidentally, before we carry on, how did you fit into the extra press bench? It's pretty tight, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, my legs aren't as long as yours, but it wasn't that bad. It was actually I didn't realise you'd be right, kind of in the away end or in half the away end.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was decent. I really enjoyed the extra experience, to be honest. I can't complain. The food was lovely. They gave us their pasties, didn't they?
Yeah.
Really nice. So they brought out biscuits at half time, so I can't complain about them at all. I really enjoyed it, and I didn't mind the press bench either. I think you might be referring to the metal trays, which I found a good system quite early on, in that it just kind of fitted my laptop quite well and didn't smash. So that was a bonus. But yeah, it was all right.
Okay, good. I'm sure ardent followers of Keshi Anderson are really intrigued. Should we climb our way out of this rabbit hole?
Yes.
The season overall, you want your attacking players to have goal involvements, which isn't a term I'm massively keen on, but Keshi is doing just that, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the game now, the attacking players, even wide players, are judged on their numbers, aren't they? You know, last season, I think we would have moaned about someone like Keshi Anderson finishing a championship season with, I think, maybe one assist or one or two goal contributions. He didn't score a goal. I don't think he got that goal against Coventry, did he? So to have this season where he is contributing regularly, and Chris Davies has pointed out a few times that Keshi gets himself into the team based on his work rate and intelligence in terms of the positions he picks up and how he fits into the system defensively. But, you know, the goal contributions are an added bonus. And in terms of goal contributions per 90 minutes, Keshi's right up there in the blue squad. I think, is it only Willemsen and Stansfield who have got more goal contributions altogether than Anderson? So he's proving to be a really valuable player in an area of the pitch that's been kind of up for debate for a lot of this season, the wide areas. We've not been really, maybe until November, sure who is going to play in those wide areas, but now it does seem to be Anderson plus one. So yeah, I think he's having a very good season. Whether he's the answer if when Blues go up to the Championship, I'm not so sure, but he's having a good season and probably justifying the contract extension they gave him a couple of months back.
And playing a lot of games as well, which was maybe the knock on him in previous seasons. And also, I think you're right. I think potentially being an answer to one of those attacking three positions, I quite like him on the right, I've got to say. You know, he's been quite effective in the last few games from the right side. He's obviously played a lot of left side. He's even played number 10 when he was really effective. Was that I think that might have been Shrewsbury away in the Vertu or whatever it is. Where do you like him? Do you think are you happy with him wherever he pops up on the pitch, or have you seen more on the right that makes you think yes, that is the place?
I actually think his best position is as a 10. That's my own personal preference, because I just don't think he's got the explosiveness or speed as a winger, you know, to really thrive in the Championship. I think he does it really well in League One. I think his quality does show wherever he plays in that three. I think he's been more effective on the right than he was on the left. Maybe that's because the way the system has been built, although he is now the wide player on the right because Chris Davies has flipped it over, hasn't he? So, but I do like him in the 10. I think he's got such game intelligence that he does really, really suit that position for me. But he's somebody who's probably going to be a 7 out of 10 most weeks wherever you put him, because he does a job for the team, even if he's not influencing the game going forward that much.
Yeah, indeed. Interesting that he seems to have settled into a role, not necessarily right or left, but as the winger on the opposite side to the forward-thinking fullback, isn't it? I guess if that makes any sense. Let's move on. You've mentioned Ayumu Yokoyama's contribution to the winning goal. His first, am I right in thinking that was his first full 90 against League One opposition? Is that right?
Yeah, because he played the full 90 against Fulham's 21s, didn't he? But I feel like that's a game we're not really, we discounted a little bit. Against a League One team, a decent League One side, I thought he was really effective. I thought he had moments first half. He seemed to come more into it after half time for me, and had a lot of joy down the left-hand side, won a few corners, worked his way into some good positions. You're obviously always looking for that end product, aren't you, from the wide players? And the cross was really good. And he has got that. I think his delivery, when he works a yard of space, is generally quite good. Off both feet, although against Exeter, it did feel like he was coming inside an awful lot. Sometimes you would like to see him go on the outside because we have seen that from him as well.
Yeah.
Saw it against, within 3 minutes of his debut at Wycombe, didn't we? Go down the outside and pull back a good cross. So you want to see more of that from him as well. But I was pleasantly surprised by him last night. I thought he was good and he seemed to be understanding what Chris Davies wants from him more. There wasn't a lot of defensive responsibility on his shoulders. Because Lee Buchanan behind him, a very solid left back, and also Ben Davies edging towards the left side really covered that space well. So maybe it was a role that suited him a little bit more, but I was quite impressed with him. And he's knocking on the door, although the squad has such depth and players are coming back from injury that he may still find it difficult to make the 18 in league matches.
Yeah, with Emil Hansen potentially back for the weekend, it's almost like this window's been open for him for 6 weeks, maybe a couple of months, and he just hasn't quite sealed the deal there. And it might be that he's sort of swept up by the chasing pack sort of thing again. Defensively, on TV, it looked as though he was tracking his runners and fulfilling his part within the wider defensive machine. Is that fair observation?
Yeah, I think he was much improved because that has been a criticism, hasn't it? I think that's probably why Chris Davies hasn't quite trusted him in league games. I remember back to the Northampton game where he didn't come on for that long, but there was one Northampton attack about a minute or two after he'd come on, and Yokoyama just completely let his man go, and he would have scored had Christian Big not been on the goal line to clear. So, yeah. And I remember Chris Davies absolutely screaming at him. So yeah, that's something that he's got to improve. Like you say, I thought he was better at it Exeter. And probably needs to do it consistently. Again, whether he gets the chance to do that now those players are coming back to fitness is another matter.
Yeah, indeed. Let's move on. The Exeter equaliser straight from a corner. You would normally expect Piers Sweeney to be on the other end of a goal-scoring corner, wouldn't you? But he was the one that delivered it directly into the back of the net. Bailey Peacock-Farrell ended up flapping or looking as though he'd flapped at that. What was your take on that goal? Are we chalking that up as to another Peacock-Farrell error?
Yeah, it's difficult. Chris Davies' assessment was that it's a foul any other league, any other game around Europe. If VAR is involved, that gets ruled out. And you know what? I'm probably inclined to agree because we have seen that goalkeepers are often protected. But in that instance, Peacock-Farrell didn't end up on the ground, did he? Because he was just eased out of it, and he was eased out a couple in the second half as well, and kind of held his arms up as if to say, it's happening again. I think you've probably got to be a little bit more forceful and throw the attacking player out of the way and force your way towards the ball, because then the referee sees that and sees the attacker infringing in your space. They're going to give the free kick, aren't they? And you're going to get it 9 times out of 10 as the goalkeeper. So I think he's probably just got to be a little less polite in that situation. Yeah. Because it happened second half, and to be fair, he did something similar in that he was just kind of like there with his arms up. But yeah, I don't know, it's difficult. I think people probably will lay the blame at his door for that. But Chris Davies, again, he's probably right that he would have been a foul in another situation.
Yeah, I want to see him more assertive in those situations. To me, if the ball is coming, if the ball's coming into the 6-yard area, that is the keeper's domain for me. And I want to see my goalkeeper knocking people out of the way. They've got the benefit, obviously, of they can initiate contact, whereas the people attacking the ball can't. Obviously they can use their hands. They can take a run up at it. For me, that is very much the goalkeeper's territory to clear stuff out and ask questions later. Interestingly, Blues didn't have anyone on the post in the second half. Obviously they didn't have him on the post in the first half either. But they conceded that goal, and I wondered when another couple of corners came in from that same side, whether they would sort of recalibrate and maybe have someone on the post, which they didn't do. but I'm afraid that for me that is another Peacock-Farrell error, foul or no foul. So yeah. Let's move on at that. From there, Luke Harris, some really nice moments, a nice, neat finish. What was your assessment of his overall performance?
Yeah, he's one of these who divides opinion a little bit, isn't he? I think you can see what he brings to the team in the positions he takes up and the way he links things. And obviously, he clearly does have a goal-scoring knack, although that was only his first goal since Wickham back in August. But there's obviously been an injury in that time as well, and he's not played an awful lot of football. I want to see a better first touch from him sometimes. I do think that has let him down, and is probably stopping him from being as effective as he would like and as Chris Davies would like. Happened a fair few times against Barnsley in that first half. I don't think that was the game for him at all, to be honest, given how rough Barnsley played. But Exeter did try and play football, and he didn't quite seize the opportunity, I think. He did okay, he scored a goal and was fairly neatish in his work, but he didn't quite take his chance to say to Chris Davies that I should be in contention for a starting place against Bristol Rovers on Saturday. I think that probably passed him by a little bit. And he's again one I think we're just waiting to have that kind of breakout game where we see what Chris Davies sees.
Which is what, Alex? Just remind us why Chris Davies does like him so much. It speaks so highly of him.
Yeah, he thinks that he's got this goal scoring knack and this ability to find those positions inside the box and finish chances. I remember reading a little bit about Luke Harris before he signed for the club, and there was the comparison with Frank Lampard, obviously not in terms of ability or level, but in the way that he plays, in that he finds spaces inside the box and arrives late, and he's a very good finisher. We saw that finishing ability against Exeter and also against Wickham with two different but good finishes. And Chris Davies said after the Wickham game that he wants to work a way to get him to arrive in those positions within the system, and it's not quite happened. I think that there is a breakout game for him. There's a chance he could turn into a very good player second half of the season, but I just haven't quite seen it from him like we've seen it from the other summer signings. But again, you've got to remember with Luke Harris, he's not, a 26-year-old Iceland internationals who's played, 3-4 seasons in Holland and done very well in the top flight there. He's played in Belarus, done very well there, and has got, God knows how many caps for his country. He's a 19-year-old youth international who's only had one loan spell in League One before this, but because he did well at Exeter with 4 goals in 18 appearances and made a very good impression on their manager, Gary Caldwell, you do expect a little bit more from him.
Yeah. Just go on to some of the players that maybe didn't take their opportunities. You've put this on the running order. Are we talking about Dion?
Yeah, we are. I think it's difficult.
It's a bit sloppy at times, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult for Dion. That was only his 7th appearance of the season. He is very much out of the picture now in terms of League One matches because Chris Davies is playing those 3 centre-backs, hasn't felt the need to have an extra centre-back on his bench even at times. So Dion's going to find it difficult to get minutes in League One if he stays beyond January. And he looked very rusty in possession at times. There was one instance in the second half, I think, where he took a really heavy touch, tried to play his way out of trouble and gave away a free kick in a dangerous position. So it's difficult. Dion Sanderson going down to League One would have expected to play every single minute and be a mainstay in the Blues team. And the signs in pre-season were that he could have done that, but it's just not worked out that way. That red card at Charlton has been very, very costly. So it doesn't really look like there's any other kind of end to this other than Dion moving on in January, whether that's on loan or a permanent transfer.
I do feel for him a little bit because he just looks so short of confidence now, which is a legacy of him not getting regular first team minutes. And he can read the room as well. He can see the fact that Davis wants Ben Davis in there, who's been outstanding, and to the extent that even Christian Bielik's been nudged over just to get him in the side as well. So there are mitigating factors there. But was there anyone else you were thinking of? Anyone else you want to bag in this?
I mean, You make it sound so negative. I just think in a game like that, you do look at the players who come in who've not been playing that many minutes in the league and like hope they're going to make a big impression. And I think, like mentioning Luke Harris, even though he started at Barnsley, his place is very much up for grabs in the team, and I don't think he quite seized it. I wasn't sure what to make of Ethan Laird last night. I thought he was very, very sloppy in possession early on. There were maybe 3 or 4 kind of long balls that he attempted down the right side, straight long balls that just were way off the mark and picked off quite easily. And he was obviously playing as the right-sided centre-back in possession, which I'm not necessarily sure suits his skill set. But it worked on the other side with Lee Buchanan, took it into midfield because he was able to shore things up and do quite well there. So, Laird, I would expect him to play against Bristol Rovers. I think he might play at left-back, which we'll come on to that in a bit. But he didn't quite hit the mark for me.
I thought if there was a way in for Exeter, it did seem down Blues right between Dion and Laird, didn't it? I felt.
Yeah, that's where most of their chances came. I thought Lee Buchanan did okay. For a person who's not played football for 5 months and not played a competitive game since the end of last season, I thought he looked okay. Obviously, there are rusty moments, but he looked pretty solid. Seemed to understand his role within the system quite well. And that bodes well with Alex Cochrane potentially being out for a little bit. Yeah,
indeed. Alex, let's rattle on. The attendance. Exeter reported an attendance of just under 2,000, 1987, and said that there were 683 Blues fans there. Now, that wasn't the allocation much bigger than that, which presumably was sold out. You shed any light on that at all?
Yeah, so the allocation was just over 1,300, and Blues reported yesterday that it had sold out. So I think we were all pretty shocked at halftime when Exeter announced that attendance, because we were expecting over 1,000 Blues fans, and it did feel like there were over 1,000 Blues fans there. Obviously, they had the terrace on the left side of the press box, and that was pretty much full. They seemed to have a great time in there, and they obviously had a good portion of seats around us, and that was pretty full as well. There weren't that many spare, so I don't know. I have no idea why it was only 683. It didn't feel like 683. I think those there probably thought it was over 1,000. It felt like over 1,000. I think there are probably 2 scenarios that you can look at here. Maybe there are Blues fans who are buying tickets and not turning up to the game for the kind of, in case Blues get to Wembley and then they have that kind of ticket history in the bank, so they can get a ticket for that. I don't think it's that. Maybe it's Exeter, playing politics or whatever and announcing a different attendance, because Blues would have had half of, or almost half of maybe more than half of the actual attendance of the game. Yeah. So I don't know. It's difficult. You're never going to find out the actual answer, but it felt like there were a lot more than 683 Blues fans there.
I have to say, when I looked at the away end, that St James Road stand, it didn't look any different to the way it did in the league match. Right. Let's move on to Bristol Rovers briefly. Obviously, that they come to St Andrews on Saturday. Can you tell us a little bit about where they are and how their season's going?
God, you've put that on me. They are not quite in trouble, but they are down there in the lower half of the table. They are 18th currently. Just pulling the league table up now. Still a little way above relegation, so they've got a 2-point buffer. 2 points. So I suppose it's nothing. You've absolutely done me here, Brian. So they're around. I mean, they're ahead of Rotherham and Wigan, who I think both of us tipped for promotion at the start of the season. They can't be doing that badly.
There must be a good side if they So they've lost their last 2 league games to Blackpool and Leyton Orient, 2-0 and 3-0. So obviously they haven't scored. Just a sort of a slight noteworthy point about this match is George Friend is the Bristol Rovers director of football, and he will be returning to St Andrews, I think, for the first time since he left a Blues career that didn't quite get off the ground. Alex, you spoke to Chris Davis last night, didn't you? Got a bit of a fitness update as regarding the likes of Williamson and Hansen and Lyndon Dykes. Just for anyone that hasn't seen that online this morning, just give us that quick fitness update. Where are all those people in their recoveries?
So it made sense that Willemsen and Dykes weren't involved at Exeter, given that it was a very quick turnaround, and obviously the team would have travelled the day before. So they should hopefully be involved against Bristol Rovers. Chris Davis says they're back in on the training ground, so you presume they train and will be available for selection for the Bristol Rovers match.
Yeah, just to say they'd missed the Barnsley game through illness, hadn't they?
Yes, sorry, illness. So and Hansen has now been training for around a week, maybe a little over. So again, Chris Davis said he's practically available now. So he will come into contention. If not for the Bristol Rovers game, he's definitely going to be back for that Crawley game, which obviously there's a 9-day gap between. I think that's it, isn't it? You're still without Scott Wright, I think, and obviously Alphonse Samslip, because they're a little bit behind Hansen, and obviously Alex Cochrane as well. Strange injury because the stud of the Barnsley player seemed to go through Cochrane's boot. And obviously created a gash. So he is, I believe, going to miss the Bristol Rovers game. And then it's how quickly I think that gash heals, which will allow him to return to training. So I think you can probably put him in the category of could potentially miss some of the Christmas games.
Right. Can a Lee Buchanan-shaped cog just be completely just airdropped in to replace the Alex Cochrane-shaped cog? Like for like, straight on, or does it have to be a little bit more nuanced than that, do you think?
I think it potentially could. Maybe that's just me being a little bit simple, but I think he could. They're quite similar players in some of their attributes, I think. Cochrane probably has better quality going forward, which you've seen. But Buchanan equally solid defensively, if not more. And Buchanan seemed to fit into the inverted left central midfield player quite well against Exeter. So I think Buchanan's one of these who's naturally quite fit. So I don't think it'll take him that long to get up to speed. Got 60 minutes in the tank at Exeter. Can he play 90 minutes against Bristol Rovers? Probably not. I don't think Chris Davis will do that. But can he play 90 minutes against Crawley? Maybe, given that's a little bit further down the line. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a run of games, or at least be rotated in the left-back spot over Christmas as it gets busy.
I wonder if he will be the one that shunts forward into the midfield, because whenever I think of Lee Buchanan, I think back to being genuinely surprised that a manager had such a different view to the way I regarded him. I thought of him at the start of last season, obviously the relegation season, when he was playing under Eustace, then Rooney. I thought he was arguably Blues' best player. Then Tony Mowbray comes in and says, no, he doesn't play forward enough. Where are you on that in terms of, if the knock on him is that he doesn't play forward enough, then sticking him in midfield, is either A, Davis disagreeing with Mowbray, or B, a bit of a gamble, or something else? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Chris Davis will just coach him to play forward more and make it kind of drill that into him. I suppose he won't be under as much pressure against League One opposition as he would have been against Championship opposition. Maybe it's a level lower that he can start implementing that into his game and get better at it here before he takes that into the Championship. I like Lee Buchanan, like you, Brian. I mean, he wasn't far off winning. Apart from Stansfeld, obviously, who cleaned up at Blues Player of the Season awards, Buchanan was quite comfortably next best with the Blues players in terms of the Players Player of the Year vote. Many of them rate him very highly. So I think he had a very good first season at Blues. He's definitely worth working with. He's got a lot of potential. He's got a high ceiling. If you could if you can make him more effective going forward in the attacking third, then you've got a really, really good modern day left back on your hands.
It also depends on what you want from your left back, isn't it?
Exactly.
Not every successful left back has been Roberto Carlos.
No.
Or it's okay just to be a good, solid defensive left back, isn't it? And I think if we're looking at the system Chris Davis has, when the left back was the inverted as the left-sided centre back, that role for Buchanan is absolutely perfect for me. We saw him do that under Eustace, didn't we, at the start of last season? And he was absolutely excellent, one of Blues' best players in the beginning of the season. So that role perfectly suits him. I think
to thrive under Chris Davies, you have to be able to do more than one thing. Like, he's probably going to have to fit into 2 different roles within the system. And that's probably just Chris Davies putting him in that left-sided central midfield position is kind of probably him testing him out a little bit and seeing what he can do. But Buchanan can definitely do the left-sided centre-back role in possession and be a very good left-back out of possession. So yeah, I think it's positive that he's back, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see who nails down that position long term, because we know, Cochrane hasn't had exposure to Championship football yet. We know Buchanan has thrived at that level with a couple of teams, and I think he's slightly younger than Cochrane as well. So yeah, it's a good battle.
Yeah, indeed. Buchanan is only 23 years old, and if he's been asked to develop his game to do something different, that's only a good thing, both for him and for Blues. Do you want to do a predicted 11 if you had time to think about it, or should we just kick around a few selection issues maybe? How do you want to play this?
Yeah, I think we can kick around the selection issues. Obviously, goalkeeper set in stone now. There's one in defence who plays at left back, Brian. My inkling is that it will be Ethan Laird.
With the back 3, Davis, Clara, Bielik.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But based on maybe not throwing Buchanan in there straight, back-to-back games.
Maybe. Yeah. I think you don't want Buchanan to break down again, do you? And he's obviously had multiple calf issues and issues since pre-season. I'd be surprised if he went in. Obviously, Chris Davies will have the data. It would give Blues more of a natural fit if Buchanan did play at left back. But given that Laird has played there in a couple of games now, I'd be surprised if he didn't get the nod.
And done quite well, to be fair to him. Yeah. Central midfield, presumably it's Peke Iwata straight back in.
Yeah, that's it. That's easy as.
That's the end of that debate. And obviously there are many more variables and options in the 3 attackers and the striker. Thoughts there? I mean, Keshi surely keeps his place.
Yeah, Keshi's nailed on to play on the right. I think if Williamson is well enough, which you presume he is, you would expect him to come back into the number 10 role. I don't think Luke Harris has done enough in Williamson's absence to take that position off him. Left wing, you would expect to be Jay Stansfield, and up top, I think Alfie May. I think he'll. Lukas Djukovic, I thought he did really well. It was roles reversed almost against Exeter, because Lukas Djukovic came off the bench at half-time against Barnsley and completely changed the game. It was clearly the game for him. Whereas 60 minutes in Exeter, you probably thought it's not the game for Djukovic here. It's more a game for an Alfie May or a Jay Stansfield type. And obviously the change worked and Blues went and won the game. So yeah, I think it'll be May up top again. And it'll be interesting to see whether Djukovic and Lyndon Dykes make the bench, or whether Chris Davies thinks he needs someone like a Yokoyama or Hansen in there instead. Yeah,
indeed. Davies seems in the last few games to have, happened upon a relationship with Jay and Alfie where they're both scoring, and Blues are winning games, and it just feels like there's more balance, doesn't it? So for me, it would be quite a surprise if Alfie didn't start as the striker. With Jay off him. So yeah, Alex, I would say we'll let you go back to bed and get some sleep. You got about a billion words to write now, haven't you? So thank you very much for your time. Thank you all for your interest. Just to promo something that's coming, we're hoping to speak to George Friend, the aforementioned George Friend, about his return to Blues and his move into his director of football role with Bristol Rovers. So hopefully that will be with you later this week as well. From Alex and from me, it's a keep right on.